have been told that empathy is a gift, that your capacity to feel what others feel is a sign of spiritual elevation, of moral refinement, and of a heart that is pure and selfless. But I tell you, this gift becomes a curse when it blinds you to your own shadow. When you spend your life carrying the pain of others without daring to look into the dark fire of your own soul. The empath who refuses to see their own rage is not harmless. No, they are the most dangerous of all. For what they repress will always find its way into the world, disguised as love, disguised as sacrifice, disguised as virtue. The shadow that is denied does not vanish. It waits, patient as the serpent in the garden, coiling itself in the depths of the unconscious, waiting for the right moment to strike. You see, the rage I speak of is not mere anger. It is the primal energy of life, the raw power that says, I am in a world that constantly tells you to be silent. It is the voice of your inner warrior, the archetypal force that refuses to be diminished or controlled by the false expectations of others. When an empath denies this rage, they begin to live in a prison of their own making. They become a vessel for everyone else's emotions, taking in the sorrows, the desire, and the projections of those around them, but never daring to acknowledge their own fiery core. And what happens when a fire is locked away? It either dies, leaving the soul cold and lifeless, or it explodes, burning everything in its path. Many of you believe you are kind because you do not shout, because you do not confront, because you take the blame and carry the burdens of those who hurt you. But this is not kindness. This is fear wearing the mask of virtue. It is the fear of your own power. The terror of being consumed by the very energy that could liberate you if only you would face it. Rage is not evil. Rage is the cry of the wounded self, the roar of the lion that has been chained for too long. When you deny it, you feed it with your silence, and it will one day devour you from the inside. The empath who is unaware of their rage becomes an archetypal martyr, living not for themselves but for the approval of others. They think they are saving the world by absorbing its pain, but in truth, they are only deepening their own wounds. They become addicted to suffering, mistaking it for love, mistaking it for connection. They draw broken people to themselves, thinking they can heal them. But what they are really doing is reenacting the same pattern that keeps their own shadow buried. Have you noticed this in yourself? That the more you give, the more they take, and still you feel unseen. It is because you have not yet seen yourself. You have not turned your gaze inward to face the wild, untamed force that lives within you. In dreams, this unacknowledged rage often appears as fire, as wild animals, or as a figure chasing you through the dark streets of your own mind. You run, but it follows, for it is part of you. It may appear as a snake coiled around your neck, as a red storm on the horizon, or as a stranger shouting words you cannot quite hear. The unconscious speaks in symbols, and every symbol is a doorway to truth. If you dare to ask what the fire wants, if you dare to let it speak, you may find that it is not here to harm you, but to awaken you. For rage, when integrated, becomes strength, becomes clarity, becomes the boundary that protects your soul. The most dangerous empath is not the one who feels too much, but the one who pretends not to feel at all. They smile when they want to scream. They forgive when they have not truly forgiven. And they stay silent when their heart is begging them to speak. This is not compassion. This is self-betrayal. And every act of self-betrayal builds a dam inside you. A dam that holds back the river of your true power. One day, that dam will break. And when it does, the flood will not be gentle. It will sweep away everything you thought you were. And you will be left staring into the mirror, wondering who you have become. But you do not have to wait for that day. You can choose now to face the truth of your own rage. You can learn to dance with it, to honor it as a part of your soul's language. Ask yourself, what am I really angry about? Where in my life have I allowed myself to be silenced, to be diminished, to be used as an emotional sponge for others? Where have I mistaken my own worth for the comfort of those who drain me? These questions are not easy, but they are necessary. For the empath who does not know their rage will always be controlled by it, just as the child who fears the dark is controlled by the shadows on the wall. Let me tell you a story. There was once a woman who could feel the sorrow of everyone she met. She would cry when strangers cried. She would bleed when others bled. She believed this was her gift, her sacred duty, to carry the pain of the world like a cross upon her back. But deep inside, there was a voice she never listened to, a voice that whispered of her own pain, her own anger, her own desire to be free. She ignored it, thinking that to acknowledge it would make her selfish, would make her unkind. But one day, when the weight of others' suffering became too heavy, she broke, and in that breaking, she screamed, a scream so raw that it shattered every illusion she had built about who she was supposed to be. It was then that she understood her rage was not her enemy. It was her soul demanding to be seen. This is what I want you to understand. Rage is not to be feared, but to be integrated. It is the shadow of your empathy. The other half of the coin, without it, your compassion becomes hollow, performative, and self-destructive. With it, your compassion gains strength, boundaries, and authenticity. When you learn to hold both the tenderness of your heart and the fire of your soul, you become whole. And wholeness, not perfection, is what the psyche longs for. When you walk through this world as an empath, you are like an open door. Every whisper of emotion, every fragment of someone's unspoken grief passes through you as if you were a vessel carved from glass. But if you do not also tend to the storm within, that door becomes a gateway, not just for light, but for shadows that are not yours to carry. You become porous, absorbing not only the sorrow of others, but also their anger, their projections, their unconscious darkness. And because you deny your own rage, you have no shield, no voice to say, this does not belong to me. Instead, you swallow it, believing that to absorb is to love, that to suffer is to be good. But love is not suffering. Love does not require you to destroy yourself. True love, soulful love, demands that you stand rooted. that you have the courage to say, no, I will not abandon myself just to keep your comfort. And this is where rage comes in, like a messenger cloaked in fire. It says to you, you have boundaries that have been trampled. You have a voice that has been silenced. You have wounds that must be acknowledged. When you listen to this voice, when you allow it to speak its truth, you find that it is not here to ruin you. It is here to heal you. I have seen it in my patients time and again. The empath who sits quietly, smiling, nodding, always the peacemaker, always the listener, is the one who often carries the deepest, most unacknowledged wounds. They fear that if they show their anger, they will lose love. They fear that if they set a boundary, they will be abandoned. So they choose to bury their rage under layers of politeness for forgiveness. That is not truly forgiveness, but avoidance. And yet, beneath their surface, the shadow grows, becoming heavier and darker. With each unspoken word, their dreams reveal it. Violent storms, animals tearing through locked doors, faces screaming from behind glass. The unconscious does not lie. It demands to be seen. Perhaps you have had dreams like these, dreams where you are chased, where you are screaming but no sound comes out, where you are trapped in a house that is burning. These are not random images. They are the psyche's way of telling you that there is something inside you that you have locked away. That fire is not the world's fire, it is your own. And if you refuse to see it, it will consume you from within. Integration begins when you stop pretending to be only light and admit that you are also flame. The world has taught empaths that rage is unbecoming, that it is destructive, that to be spiritual is to be endlessly forgiving and endlessly kind. But this is a false teaching, a distortion of true wholeness. You cannot be whole if you amputate a part of yourself. You cannot truly love if you are afraid of your own power. Rage, like every archetypal force, has its sacred purpose. It is the protector of your soul. It is the energy that tells you when something is wrong, when something violates the deepest truth of your being. To deny it is to deny your own compass. Imagine a river. If the water is allowed to flow freely, it nourishes the earth. It creates life. It sustains. But if you build a dam and hold the water back, the pressure grows. Eventually, the dam will burst. And when it does, the flood will be wild and destructive. Rage works the same way. When you honor it, when you give it voice, it moves through you like water, cleansing and renewing. When you suppress it, it becomes toxic, turning inward, poisoning the very heart. It was meant to protect the empath who denies their rage, often ends up sick physically, emotionally, spiritually. They carry the weight of everyone else's emotions while their own energy withers. Have you noticed this in yourself? The exhaustion that lingers, no matter how much you rest, the feeling of being invisible, of giving and giving but never being truly seen. This is the cost of denying your shadow, and yet within you is a force that can change all of this, a force that is waiting for you to acknowledge it, to listen to its language. Rage is not a child throwing a tantrum, it is an elder ancient and wise, asking you to remember your own worth. When you feel it rising, do not run. Sit with it. Ask it, what are you trying to tell me? What boundary have I crossed against myself? Where have I given away my power? If you are brave enough to hear the answers, you will begin to transform. It is not enough to simply intellectualize this truth. You must feel it in your bones. You must let your body speak the language of the shadow. Sometimes this means crying out. Sometimes this means moving, creating, painting, dancing, allowing the fire to take form so it does not burn you from the inside. The unconscious does not heal through logic, it heals through expression. If you dream of fire, perhaps you need to let yourself burn away what no longer serves you. If you dream of wolves or lions, perhaps it is time to awaken the part of you that is wild and untamed. Do not fear these images. They are your allies, your soul's way of calling you home. The most dangerous empath is the one who walks through life smiling while their soul is screaming. This danger is not because they will harm others, but because they are harming themselves. And when the soul has had enough, it will erupt in ways you cannot predict. You may find yourself suddenly lashing out, or falling into deep despair, or cutting ties with people and places that once defined you. This is the shadow breaking through. It is better to meet it willingly, with open eyes, than to be blindsided by its force. I remember a man who came to me gentle and kind, the sort of man who could not say no to anyone. He thought he was living a life of service, but he was exhausted, bitter, and secretly resentful of everyone who leaned on him. His dreams were filled with images of fire and war. In one dream, he saw himself holding a sword, but his hands were bleeding because he refused to use it. That dream was a turning point. I told him the sword is not for violence, it is for truth. It is the part of you that must cut away what is false. What is draining you? When he finally allowed himself to feel his rage, to acknowledge the boundaries he had been too afraid to enforce, he came alive. He was no longer the passive empath, but a warrior of the soul. This is what I mean when I say the most dangerous empath is the one who denies their rage. It is not that their rage is destructive, but that their denial leaves them vulnerable to manipulation, to being consumed by the shadows of others. When you embrace your rage, when you integrate it into your being, you become unshakable. You no longer absorb everything around you, because you know what is yours and what is not. You can feel the pain of the world without drowning in it, because your own fire is strong enough to burn away what does not belong to you. The shadow, once faced, becomes your greatest ally. It is the guardian of your authenticity. It does not care about social approval, about the masks you wear for others. It only wants you to be real. And to be real, you must feel everything, the love, the sorrow, the joy, and yes, the rage. Do not confuse rage with hatred. Hatred seeks to destroy others. Rage seeks to restore your own balance. It is the primal roar that says, I matter, I exist, I will not be erased. If you are listening to me now, I ask you to look within. Where have you buried your fire? What stories have you told yourself about being too much, too sensitive or too angry? Who taught you that to express your power was dangerous or wrong? These are the chains you must break. The empath who frees their rage is no longer at the mercy of the world's storms. They become the storm, but a storm that clears the skies, that brings rain to the desert of their own soul. When I speak of rage, I do not speak of something wild and uncontrolled, but of a sacred force that has been misunderstood for centuries. Our cultures have painted anger as a sin, as something to be suppressed, to be locked away in the basement of our psyche. Yet the unconscious knows better. It knows that anger, when honored, is a sign that your soul is alive, that something within you still remembers its worth. The empath who denies this truth is like a river pretending to be a pond still on the surface. But beneath, currents swirl, building pressure until they can no longer be contained. You must understand that rage is not the opposite of love. In fact, rage often arises from love, love that has been betrayed, love that has been taken for granted, love that has been forced to hide. When you feel rage, it is because something sacred has been violated, and your being is crying out for restoration. To deny that cry is to betray yourself. And when you betray yourself long enough, you become fragmented. You live as two beings, the self that smiles and forgives, and the shadow self that festers in silence, whispering in the night, demanding to be seen. Have you ever felt that strange heaviness in your chest? That tightness that comes when you cannot speak your truth? That is rage, knocking on the walls of your soul, asking for permission to be expressed. But the empath often says, no, I cannot. I must be kind. I must be calm. I must not make waves. And so the rage is forced deeper into the unconscious, where it begins to weave itself into your thoughts, your dreams, your body. This is why so many empaths suffer from exhaustion, from unexplained illnesses, from depression. The energy of the shadow does not disappear. It manifests in whatever form will finally make you pay attention. Think of the archetypes in every myth. There is the figure who represents repressed fire, the warrior, the destroyer, the avenger. These are not evil figures, though they are often feared. They represent the force of transformation, the breaking of old patterns, the clearing away of what no longer serves the soul. If you have denied your rage, these archetypes will begin to appear in your life, either as outer events, conflicts, betrayals, sudden losses, or as inner battles, dreams where you are forced to fight, to defend, to claim your power. The unconscious will bring these images to you again and again, until you finally understand that the battle is not outside, it is within. I once treated a woman who had spent her entire life pleasing others. She was the perfect daughter, the perfect friend, the perfect partner. She never said no, never allowed herself to disappoint anyone. But inside, she was breaking. Her dreams were filled with images of wolves, wolves tearing at her clothes, wolves chasing her through the woods. At first, She thought these dreams were nightmares, signs that something terrible was coming. But I told her, these wolves are not here to hurt you. They are your power, your instincts, your anthem nature calling you home. They are asking you to stop running and face the truth of who you are. The moment she understood this, everything began to change. She learned to say no. She learned to speak her anger, and far from losing love, she found deeper, truer connections, because she was no longer hiding behind a mask. This is the path you must walk. Do not fear the wolves in your dreams, the fire in your chest, the storm that gathers in your mind. They are not here to destroy you, but to liberate you. The empath who embraces their rage becomes whole. And wholeness is the true goal of the psyche. It is not about being endlessly gentle or endlessly forgiving. It is about being true. And truth sometimes roars. There is a profound loneliness that comes from being an empath who denies their rage. You feel disconnected, not because the world is cold, but because you have abandoned a part of yourself. You may find that you are surrounded by people, yet you feel unseen, unheard. This is because you are showing them only half of your soul, the light, the tenderness of the compassion, but not the fire. And without fire, even love grows cold. To be truly seen, you must be willing to show all of yourself, even the parts that others may not understand. The shadow is not your enemy. It is your teacher. It holds the parts of you that have been exiled, the parts that were told they were too loud, too angry, too wild. But these parts are not wrong. They are simply waiting for you to invite them back into your heart. When you do, something extraordinary happens. You stop needing validation from others. You stop bending your will just to be loved. You stand tall, rooted in your own authenticity. And the world begins to respond differently. You attract people who respect your boundaries, who see you not as a vessel for their pain, but as a soul in its own right. Rage, when integrated, becomes courage. It becomes the voice that says, I will no longer betray myself for your comfort. It becomes the fire that clears away the dead wood of your past, making space for new life to grow. Do you see? This is not about becoming harsh or cruel. It is about reclaiming the energy you have given away to everyone else. It is about learning that empathy without boundaries is not love, it is self-destruction. I tell you this because I know how dangerous it is to deny the shadow. The unconscious is relentless. It will send you dreams. It will send you symbols. It will send you people who mirror your repressed emotions back to you. The narcissist who drains you. The manipulator who plays on your kindness. These are not random. They are reflections of the parts of yourself you refuse to acknowledge. Until you see this, you will keep attracting them, as if drawn by an invisible thread. But once you face your rage, once you honor it as a sacred part of your being, these patterns break, the thread snaps, you are free. Do not underestimate the power of this freedom. It is not soft, it is not quiet, it is a liberation that shakes the foundations of who you thought you were. You may find yourself changing everything, your relationships, your work, your very sense of purpose. But this is not destruction for its own sake. This is rebirth. Just as the phoenix must burn to rise, so too must you allow your shadow to set fire to the illusions you have carried for too long. The empath who denies their rage walks through life half alive, always giving, always pouring, until they are empty. But the empath who embraces their rage becomes a force of nature. They can love deeply without losing themselves. They can give without being drained. They can feel the world's pain without mistaking it for their own. This is the path of wholeness, the path of the integrated soul. When I say you must embrace your rage, I do not mean that you should let it consume you or lash out at the world. I mean that you must learn to hold it, to look it in the eye, to understand what it has been trying to tell you all along. Rage is the language of your inner truth, a voice that rises when you have been silenced for too long. To face it is to face your own unmet needs, for your own forgotten power, your own unspoken words. You cannot heal by rejecting this part of yourself. You can only heal by integrating it, by bringing the fire into your heart instead of letting it smolder in the shadows. The empath who denies their rage becomes entangled in the suffering of others because they lack the inner fire that says, this is mine, and this is not. Without rage, you do not have boundaries. You have walls made of silence, walls that others do not see and do not respect. And so you keep letting them in, letting them shape who you are, until you forget that you are more than what they need you to be. Rage is the energy that tears down those invisible walls and replaces them with living boundaries. Boundaries that are not barriers, but living lines of truth. It is the force that teaches you to say, this is where I end, and you begin. This is where I protect my own soul. Think of a fire in the wilderness. When it is untended, when it burns without purpose, it can destroy everything in its path. But when it is guided, when it is used to warm, to cook, to forge, it becomes the source of life itself. Your rage is like that fire. Untended, it can spill into resentment, bitterness, or self-destruction. But when you face it, when you learn to channel it, it becomes the energy of transformation. It becomes courage. It becomes the voice that finally speaks your truth after years of silence. Many of you have been taught to fear anger because you have only seen its destructive side. Perhaps you grew up in a home where anger was violence, where it was wielded like a weapon. Perhaps you were told that to feel anger was to be ungrateful, unkind, unworthy. And so you buried it, believing that to be good was to be calm, always calm. But the calm you chose was not peace, it was suppression. True peace is not the absence of fire, it is the mastery of it. To be at peace is to know that you can hold both your love and your rage without being consumed by either. When I studied the human psyche, I discovered that the shadow is not a monster but a mirror. It holds the parts of us we have disowned because they did not fit the image we thought we needed to show the world. For the empath, that shadow often holds rage because rage does not fit the story of the gentle, selfless one. But the more you disown it, the more it appears outside of you in your relationships, in the people who mistreat you, in the dreams that haunt you. If you dare to turn inward, if you dare to bring that shadow into the light of your awareness, you will see that it was never your enemy. It was always your strength. I once spoke to a man who was endlessly patient, endlessly kind. but who carried a deep sadness in his eyes. He told me that he could never say no, that he always felt the pain of those around him as if it were his own. He believed this made him strong, but he was breaking under the weight of it. I asked him, when was the last time you allowed yourself to feel anger? He looked at me, confused, as if the question itself was foreign. I don't get angry. He said, but his dreams told another story. In his dreams, there were explosions, storms, shattered glass. His soul was trying to scream what he refused to say aloud. When he finally allowed himself to feel his rage, not to lash out, but simply to acknowledge it, I saw him change. His voice grew stronger. His eyes no longer carried that dull sadness. He had found his fire. You see, denying rage does not make it disappear. It only buries it where it festers and grows, feeding on every moment of self-betrayal. And when it finally breaks through, it does so with a force that can shock even you. This is why the empath who denies their rage is dangerous, not because they are malicious, but because they are unaware of the power building within them. They become like a volcano, silent for years, then erupting without warning. But this does not have to be your story. You can learn to work with a volcano, to let out the pressure little by little, to turn that fire into something creative, something healing. I urge you to look at the symbols of your life. What do your dreams show you? Are there fires? Are there wild animals? Are there floods or storms? These are not random. They are the language of your unconscious, trying to draw your attention to what you have ignored. Sit with these symbols. Let them speak to you. Ask them what they want. If there is fire, perhaps it is time to burn away the false identities you have worn for too long. If there is a wolf, perhaps it is time to reclaim your instincts, your wildness, your power to protect yourself. The unconscious always tells the truth. If you are brave enough to listen, the world will not teach you this, for the world benefits. When empaths stay silent, when they keep giving without question, when they deny their own needs, but you're not here to be drained dry. You are not here to be a vessel for everyone else's shadows. You are here to become whole, and wholeness is not soft. It is fierce. It is radiant. It is the union of light and dark, of compassion and rage, of tenderness and strength. When you step into this wholeness, you will see that your rage was never a curse. It was the missing piece of your power. In the end, it is not about being good or bad, light or dark. It is about being real. The soul does not care for your image, for the masks you wear. It cares only for truth. And truth is sometimes uncomfortable. It asks you to face the parts of yourself that you have been taught to fear. But when you do, when you look into the fire and see your own reflection there, you will realize that you were never broken, never weak. You are simply waiting to remember who you are. There is a silence that lives inside the empath who denies their rage. But it is not a peaceful silence. It is the silence of a storm that has not yet broken. Beneath it, there are voices, unspoken truths, forgotten creeds, memories of every moment. You said yes when you wanted to say no. Every time you swallowed your pain, so others would feel comfortable. These voices are not gone. They are waiting for you to listen. And if you do not, they will speak through your body, through exhaustion, through anxiety, through the quiet sense that something essential is missing from your life. This is why I say the most dangerous empath is the one who refuses to look into this storm. Not because they are dangerous to others, but because they are dangerous to themselves, cutting themselves off from the very fire that could set them free. You must allow yourself to feel. Do not fear the rawness of your emotions. Rage is a guide. It shows you where you have been hurt, where you have been living in a way that betrays your soul. When you feel it, do not run from it or cover it with smiles and empty forgiveness. Instead, ask, what boundary was crossed here? What truth am I denying? Rage will show you where you have abandoned yourself, and it will demand that you return. It is not here to punish you. It is here to remind you that your heart, too, deserves the compassion you give so freely to others. In many of my writings, I spoke of individuation, the process of becoming whole, of integrating the unconscious with the conscious self. This path is not gentle. It is a firewalk, and every step requires courage for the empath. This path often begins with rage, because rage is the first sign that the shadow is knocking on your door, asking to be let in. To ignore it is to stay asleep, to live as a fragment of yourself. But to open the door, to let the shadow speak, is to begin the journey of becoming truly alive. There is a profound alchemy in this work. When you face your rage, when you give it space to breathe, it begins to transform. What was once raw fire becomes the light of clarity, the strength of conviction, the courage to live in alignment with your soul. You no longer give your energy to those who drain you. You no longer apologize for existing. You begin to speak your truth, not with violence, but with a quiet power that cannot be shaken. People sense this. They can no longer manipulate you, because you are no longer a mirror for their projections. You have claimed your own reflection. The empath who has integrated their rage is unstoppable. They are not cold, but they are no longer naive. They can hold another's pain without drowning in it, because they have learned to hold their own. They can love deeply without losing themselves, because their fire burns steady within them. They no longer seek validation through self-sacrifice, because they have found their worth in the union of their light and their shadow. This is true empathy, an empathy rooted in strength, not in self-erasure. Let me tell you this, the world does not need more people who are endlessly kind and endlessly forgiving while silently suffering. The world needs empaths who are awake, who have the courage to say, I will feel your pain, but I will not carry it for you. I will stand with you, but I will not abandon myself. This is a kind of love that heals, because it does not come from a place of emptiness, but from fullness, from the overflowing heart of one who has faced their own darkness and emerged whole. Have you ever noticed that the moments you fear your own rage the most are the moments when you feel most powerless? It is because rage is the voice of power, the reminder that you are not here to be trampled or silenced. When you deny it, you feel small, invisible, used. But when you honor it, when you allow yourself to feel its heat and listen to its wisdom, you remember who you are, You are not just a vessel for other people's emotions, you are a soul with a voice, a life, a fire all your own. There is an image that often comes to me when I speak of this, a candle in the dark. The empath without rage is like a candle that burns for everyone else, but does not know. It can protect its own flame. It flickers, it weakens until it burns out. But the empath who embraces their rage is like a fire in a hearth, warm, steady, untouchable by the winds outside. It does not burn out because it is fed by both love and truth. And truth, my friend, is what will save you. The truth is that you have been angry for longer than you admit. Angry at being used, angry at being unseen, angry at yourself for letting it happen. And beneath that anger is something even deeper, a longing to be free, to live a life that is yours, not one shaped by the demands and needs of everyone else. If you listen to this longing, if you let it guide you, you will begin to rebuild. You will learn to say no without guilt, to speak without fear, to love without losing yourself. And in that moment, you will realize that rage was never your enemy. It was your teacher, your protector, the wild voice of your soul, calling you home. I leave you with this thought. Do not be afraid of your fire. The world has enough people who are afraid of their own power. You were not meant to live as a shadow of yourself. You were meant to burn brightly, fiercely, and with purpose. Let your rage teach you where the walls of your soul have been broken. Let it guide you as you rebuild. Let it remind you that even in the darkest night, you are not powerless. You are the fire, and when you finally accept this, when you embrace both your tenderness and your fire, you will see what it means to be truly whole. You will not just be an empath, you will be a force of healing, a mirror of truth, a living example of the soul that has walked through its own darkness and emerged, not unscarred, but unbroken, shining all the brighter for the fire it carries within.